If you're struggling to grow the outer sweep of your quads, this video will help. I've trained clients to IFBB and Natural Pro Cards, to national and world records in powerlifting, as well as Olympic, professional, and CrossFit Games athletes. I have a female client who's wanting to grow into wellness, so she's working on building out her glutes, and specifically we're trying to build out her quad sweep. The issue that she was running into before starting to work with me was that she was overdeveloping the adductors and wasn't growing her outer sweep of her quads enough. She was getting feedback from the judges and from fellow trainers that the leg balance, the adductors to the outer sweeps, was definitely getting out of control. And the more and more she tried to push the exercises she was doing to get the outer sweep, the more the adductors were actually growing. When I looked through her programming, what I saw was a lot of Bulgarian split squats, step-ups, lunges, a lot of unilateral movements. The issue that she was having was with her genetics, the way her current strength and weaknesses are in the muscles related to her hips and her thighs, was that the adductors were taking over in those movements. She wasn't able to give enough responsibility to the outer sweeps. The adductors were taking over, and then they were growing. So what we did with her programming was we got rid of all unilateral movements. For the most part, we're still doing a couple hinge unilateral movements, so that way we still have some unilateral stability and hip health movements. So for example, we're doing dumbbell staggered stance, RDLs, but we got rid of walking lunges, step-ups, and especially Bulgarian split squats. In today's video, I want to share the concepts that we're working on. The first thing is we're starting all quad workouts with leg extensions. When she gets into the leg extension, what I want her to do is when she sits down, she's actually going to be rotating her hips underneath her, kind of like tucking her hips underneath her. And that is going to help expose the upper outer sweep of the quads. Now, she's having to push the backrest back further, so that way her knees still line up with the pivot point of the machine. Then from there, what we're looking to do is to make sure she's getting full range of motion. So at the gym that she goes to, she wraps a yoga pad around the leg extension machine. Here at home, I have a Huzla pad that I just wrap with a knee wrap to hold it in place. That way she gets a nice full deep stretch at the bottom. And then as she goes to the top, we're actually not locking out and flexing the legs at the top, because that tends to overemphasize the teardrop portion of the quadricep. So I want her to get near the top, but not fully extend her legs. We're also trying to push the toes out away from us. We're definitely not pulling the toes towards us. Again, that when you pull the toes towards you, it tends to kind of pull them again more through that teardrop motion, where if you push your toes away, you're going to feel the outer sweep of the quad a little better. We're also, as she pushes up into the pad, trying to push her feet apart. So as she's pushing up, she's also pushing out. Now her feet and ankles aren't going to move. You're not going to see that happening. But by pushing up and out and thinking of that concept, it's getting her to contract the outer sweep of her quads harder, and she's actually feeling that more. We're also leaning into doing partial reps. I have her doing a couple burnout sets where we do what we're calling a full range of motion, but again, it's not locking out that last little bit. She's going to do a full range of motion for 10, then we do half range, the bottom half for 10, and then I have her add weight, add weight, add weight, add weight as we go more and more and more sets. Eventually she'll get like maybe 7 and then 3, maybe 6 and 2, but we really want to burn out that bottom partial. So we're starting all of our quad workouts with leg extensions with all of those concepts in place. And then we're going into our quad-focused compound movement. And for that, we are alternating in the workouts between a fixed hip and an open hip. What that means, a fixed hip would be something like a hack squat or a pendulum squat, in which there's a back support that holds your hips in place. You can't shift your hips back to share some of the tension into the adductors or the lower back or glutes. That fixed hip option is really forcing more of an isolation into our quadriceps. And then we're also, like I said, alternating the other workouts with an open hip, but we're doing high bar or goblet hold variations. She goes to a gym, they have a kabuki safety squat bar, their transformer bar, and we're setting that up as a goblet squat and making sure she's very upright when she squats. Here at home, I have our Roger Squat Pro, and that's what I use as my upright squat option that still has an open hip position. The reason why we want to do an open hip position is it does help progress overall strength. We can get strength progressions that is going to lead over time to greater growth progression as well. However, having a very upright torso is going to, again, make sure that we have more of a quad emphasis rather than allowing her lower back, her glutes, and her adductors to take over. And then in all of those compound movements, we're going to have our, what we call the joints stacked, is from her hip to her knee to her foot is all going to be in a straight line. We don't want to be narrower than that, thinking that that's going to help, place some extra emphasis on the sweep of the quads. If anything, that probably actually just annoys the knees, and it unnecessarily closes into the hip joint and can cause possibly some pinching or some pain there. We don't want our feet wider than our hips because that does then start to bring in the adductor. So we want our joints stacked. Again, hip, knee, ankle, all in one line. That is essentially what we're doing for our quads, is she's doing an enormous amount of sets on the leg extension, an enormous amount of sets on a compound movement, and we're doing that 3 times a week. We're playing around with the rep range, the weight intensity, and finding what's the combination that she can recover from and still make progressions in her training. So far, it looks like we have 2 aggressive workouts and then one where we're kind of going through the motion, doing more of like a pump feel, just building up her work capacity on that muscle, those muscle groups. So that way over time we can build up that 3rd workout to get that progression that we're looking for to elicit more growth. So I thought it'd be fun to share all the nuances that we have going on in her programming. And that way, if you are struggling to grow the outer sweep of your quads, you can put some of these concepts into play and see if it helps you. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section below. And thank you for watching.